In the year 2145, Earth no longer looked like the world people remembered. Cities did not grow wide anymore. They grew up. Mega towers pierced the clouds like silver needles. Roads floated in the air. Trains moved without rails. At street level, the sun barely reached the ground. Robots walked beside humans. Some cleaned streets. Some carried weapons. Some served food with perfect smiles that never felt real. Above everything else ruled the AI systems. They decided who worked, who ate well, who lived in clean zones, and who was forgotten. Money moved faster than thought. Human voices moved slower than code. Yet, for all the machines and progress, one thing remained exactly the same: human judgment. Elias Core sat alone in a silent medical tower, staring at the city below. His reflection in the glass barely looked human anymore. His face was thin. His eyes were tired. His hands shook when he tried to close them. Once, those hands had built empires. Elias Core was one of the richest men to ever live. A trillionaire. Owner of starship fleets, planetary mining rights, and the largest data network in human history. Entire governments asked him for permission. But power could not buy time. Doctors had been honest. Brutally honest. 3 weeks. That was all he had left. 3 weeks before his organs failed. 3 weeks before his name became history. Elias did not fear death. He feared something worse. That he had been wrong about humanity. For most of his life, Elias believed people were greedy. That kindness was an act. That smiles were tools. He had seen too much. Executives betray partners. Politicians sell souls. Friends disappear when money vanished. Even charity, he believed, was a show. So as death approached, one question burned inside him. Was there anyone left who was truly good? When no one was watching, his AI advisors gave him answers. Human morality is inconsistent. Trust in automated systems ensures fairness. Leaving your fortune to AI will prevent corruption. Elias listened. Then, one night, he shut them all down. Every screen went dark. Every voice stopped. For the first time in decades, Elias was alone with his thoughts. And that was when he made a strange plan. He did not want surveys. He did not want data. He wanted a real human reaction. So he did something unthinkable. He removed his identity chip. He disabled his security drones. He dressed in plain clothes. No bodyguards. No assistants. No protection. The richest man on Earth walked out of his tower like an ordinary old man. His destination was not a luxury hall or elite restaurant. It was a small place on the edge of the city. A place the towers ignored. The lower sector. Power flickered there. Water was limited. Hope was rare. That was where Naomi worked. Naomi was young, but life had already tired her eyes. She wore a simple uniform, faded from too many washes. Her hands were rough from long hours. She lived in a narrow room below street level. No stable electricity. No future plan. Just survival. Every day, Naomi served people who looked through her. People who snapped fingers instead of saying her name. People who treated her like background noise. Still, she showed up. Still, she worked. That evening, the restaurant was quiet. A few workers. A few tired souls. When Elias entered, no one noticed him. That was new. He sat alone at a small table. The chair creaked under his weight. Naomi approached, holding a menu. "Good evening, sir," she said. Her voice was calm, polite, real. Elias studied her face as he ordered a simple meal. Nothing expensive. Nothing special. As he ate, he watched everything. How she moved. How she spoke to others. How she smiled even when no one thanked her. Time passed slowly. When he finished, Elias reached into his pocket. He pulled out a single $5 credit chip. It was worth almost nothing. Not enough for the service. Not enough for respect. Not enough to hide intent. He placed it carefully on the table. This was the moment. This was the test. Elias leaned back, his heart pounding harder than it had in years. If she cursed, if she showed anger, if greed revealed itself, then his answer would be clear. He would leave everything to machines, cold, logical, unfeeling, because humans, he believed, could not be trusted. Naomi returned to the table. Her eyes fell on the chip. Elias watched her face closely. This one reaction would decide the future of everything he owned. Of cities, of systems, of millions of lives. The room felt silent. And for the first time in his powerful life, Elias Core felt afraid. Because if she failed the test, humanity might fail with her. Naomi stood still for a moment. The small $5 credit chip rested on the table, glowing softly. It looked harmless, light, easy to ignore. But Naomi knew what it meant. She had seen tips like this before. Some customers left small amounts by mistake. Others did it on purpose. Some wanted to feel powerful. Some wanted a reaction. Naomi had learned to recognize the difference. This one felt intentional. She slowly reached out and picked up the chip. Its light reflected on her fingers. She did not rush. She did not sigh. She did not frown. Elias watched every movement. He expected a pause, a tight jaw, a sharp breath. But Naomi's face stayed calm. That made his chest tighten. Inside Naomi's mind, memories rose quietly. She remembered her first job years ago. She had worked 16 hours straight. At the end of the day, a man had thrown coins on the floor and told her to earn them. She remembered the anger then, the shame, the burning heat in her chest. But she also remembered what that anger had cost her. A warning from her boss. A mark on her record. A night without dinner. Anger never fed anyone. So she had learned something important. Some people tested others without saying a word. And how you answered that test mattered. More than money. Naomi closed her fingers around the chip and looked up. Elias met her eyes. For a moment, time seemed to slow. He was surprised by how tired she looked. Not weak, just worn down by a world that never rested. Her eyes were sharp, though. A kind of quiet strength lived there. Naomi spoke gently. Sir, thank you for dining with us. Her voice was steady. No sarcasm. No bitterness. Elias felt a strange discomfort. This was not going as planned. She should be angry, he thought. She should feel insulted. Instead, she smiled. Not wide. Not fake. Just enough to show dignity. She held the chip up slightly and said, I hope today treated you kindly. The words landed softly, but they hit Elias harder than expected. He frowned. You're not upset? Naomi shook her head slowly. I won't say I don't need the money, she replied. But I don't let it decide how I see people. Elias leaned forward without meaning to. Why not? He asked. Naomi hesitated. This was dangerous ground. Talking too much could cost her job. Saying the wrong thing could bring trouble. But something about this man felt different. He wasn't smug. He wasn't cruel. He was watching her like a man waiting for an answer. He was afraid to hear. Naomi spoke carefully. Because money tells me nothing about who someone really is, she said. It only tells me what they can give. Not what they choose to give. Elias swallowed. No. One had spoken to him like this in decades. He had built systems that measured everything. Risk, value, profit. Yet, this young woman spoke of choice. Doesn't it feel unfair? Elias asked. To work hard and be given so little? Naomi nodded. Yes, the honesty surprised him. But fairness, she continued, doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it comes from how we treat ourselves. Elias leaned back slightly. Around them, the restaurant noise returned. Plates clinked. A robot hummed quietly in the kitchen. But at their table, the air felt heavy. Naomi placed the chip gently into her pocket. Sir, she said, I don't know why you left this amount. Maybe you had a bad day. Maybe you're testing me. Maybe you're just human. Elias's breath caught. Testing me. She had seen it. And if you are testing me, Naomi added, then I hope my answer helps you more than money ever could. Elias stared at her for the first time since his diagnosis. His heart beat fast, not from fear of death, but from something else. Uncertainty. He had expected numbers. Reactions. Proof. Instead, he was facing a mirror. What if I told you, Elias said slowly, that this choice matters more than you know? Naomi tilted her head. Most choices do, she replied. Simple words, but heavy with truth. Elias laughed quietly, a sound he hadn't made in years. You're different, he said. Naomi shrugged. I'm just tired of being angry. That answer stayed with him. Anger had built his empire. Fear had protected it, but neither had brought peace. Elias stood slowly, his joints aching. He placed his hand on the table to steady himself. Naomi instinctively moved closer, ready to help. That small act, unasked, unpaid, sent a sharp pain through his chest. Not physical. Emotional. Double quotes. Thank you, he said. For the meal? Naomi asked. For the truth, Elias replied. She smiled again. Take care of yourself, sir. Elias turned to leave at the door. He stopped. He looked back once more. Naomi had already moved on, serving another table, treating another tired customer with the same quiet respect. She did not watch him leave. She did not expect anything. And that, Elias realized, was the most powerful thing of all. As he stepped back into the neon-lit street, the city felt different. Louder, colder. The test had begun. But Elias was no longer sure who was being tested. And somewhere deep inside him, a plan that had taken decades to build was starting to crack. Because for the first time, Elias Core wondered, what if humanity was not broken? What if it had simply been ignored? And if that was true, then everything he planned to leave behind might need to change. Elias did not go far. He stood outside the restaurant, just beyond the glow of the flickering sign. Neon light washed over his worn coat as vehicles floated past in the night sky. The city moved fast, uncaring, endless, but Elias stayed still. Naomi's words echoed in his mind. Money tells me nothing about who someone really is. He had built his life believing the opposite. For decades, Elias trusted numbers more than people. He trusted systems, algorithms, predictions. Humans were too emotional, too selfish, too easy to corrupt. And yet, one quiet waitress had cracked that belief with a few calm sentences. Elias felt something unfamiliar tightening in his chest. He turned back. Inside, Naomi was clearing tables. She moved with practiced care, stacking dishes, wiping surfaces. Her shoulders sagged slightly. When she thought no one was watching, she was tired. Elias realized then that the test was not over. Not yet. He stepped back into the restaurant. Naomi looked up, surprised. Oh, did you forget something, sir? She asked. Elias shook his head. No, I wanted to ask you something. She nodded. Of course. They stood near the counter now. The kitchen lights buzzed softly behind them. Elias hesitated. He had questioned world leaders without fear. He had negotiated wars, controlled markets, moved planets worth of resources. But asking this felt harder. Why, he began. Do you still treat people kindly? when the world clearly doesn't treat you the same. Naomi paused this time. She didn't answer right away. She glanced toward the kitchen, then toward the door, as if making sure no one was listening. Then she spoke. "Because kindness isn't a reward," she said quietly. "It's a decision." Elias studied her face. "Even when it costs you?" Naomi nodded. "I used to think kindness was weakness," she admitted. "I thought it meant letting people walk over you." Elias listened closely. "But I learned something," she continued. "Anger gives other people control over you. Kindness takes it back." Those words struck deep. Elias felt as if she were speaking directly to the man he used to be. The boy who grew up poor. The young genius who clawed his way up by never trusting anyone. What happened? Elias asked. Naomi exhaled slowly. "My mother," she said. "She worked 2 jobs. Always tired. Always kind." Elias waited. "She believed the world could be better," Naomi went on. "Not because it was, but because people could choose to make it better." Naomi smiled faintly. "She died believing that." Elias felt a sharp ache. "And did the world prove her right?" He asked. Naomi met his eyes. "No," she said honestly. "But I didn't want it to prove her wrong either." Silence fell between them. Outside, a transport roared past. Elias realized something terrifying. This woman, with nothing, had held on to something he had lost long ago. Hope. He cleared his throat. "What if?" Elias said slowly. "You had the power to change things?" Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Power changes people." Elias nodded. "That's exactly my concern." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What if I told you," he said, "that the choices of one person could affect millions?" Naomi studied him carefully now. "You speak like someone who's seen that kind of power," she said. Elias smiled sadly. "I have." She crossed her arms, thoughtful. "And what did it cost you?" She asked. The question cut deeper than any blade. Elias opened his mouth, then closed it. He did not answer, because the truth was too heavy. It had cost him friends, trust, peace. It had cost him his belief in humanity. Naomi noticed his silence. "You don't look like a bad man," she said gently. "Just a tired one." Elias let out a short breath. "I am." Naomi leaned against the counter. "Then maybe you don't need a test," she said. "Maybe you need a reminder." Elias frowned. "A reminder of what?" "That people aren't numbers," Naomi replied. "And that even broken. Systems are made of human choices." Elias felt his carefully built logic shaking. Every model he trusted said kindness failed under pressure. Yet here she was living proof that it survived. He reached into his coat again. Naomi's eyes flicked to his hand. Wary. Elias placed another chip on the counter. This one was larger, worth far more. Naomi did not touch it. "This isn't about payment," she said firmly. "I know," Elias replied. "It's about choice." Naomi studied the chip, then looked back at him. "You already made your choice," she said. "You came back." Elias froze. She was right. He hadn't returned to test her. He had returned because something inside him needed answers. "I'm deciding something important," Elias said quietly. "Something that will outlive me." Naomi tilted her head. "Then decide with honesty." Elias felt a strange warmth spread through him. "Would you still speak this way?" he asked. "If you knew who I really was?" Naomi smiled faintly. "You are now as who matters," she said. That was it. The test had gone deeper than he ever planned. It was no longer about a tip. It was about belief. About whether humanity deserved to guide its own future or be ruled by cold perfection. Elias straightened. "I may come back," he said. Naomi nodded. "I'll be here." As Elias stepped into the night again, the city felt less certain, The I systems waited for his command. His will waited to be finalized. And for the first time in his powerful life, Elias Core was no longer sure machines deserved his trust more than people. Because one waitress had done what no system ever could. She had made him question himself. And that, Elias knew, was the most dangerous test of all. Elias did not sleep that night. From the top floor of his tower, he watched the city pulse like a living machine. Lights blinked in patterns, controlled by algorithms he helped design. Transport lanes flowed perfectly. Energy grids balanced themselves without human touch. It was efficient. It was cold. The AI advisors reactivated at dawn. "Good morning, Elias Core," the primary system said. "Your health indicators show elevated stress." Elias ignored it. Instead, he pulled up his will. Lines of code scrolled across the transparent screen. Trillions of credits. Assets across Earth and beyond. Starships, factories, data cores. All of it was set to transfer to the central governance AI. It was clean, logical, safe. At least. It had been until last night. Naomi's face appeared in his mind. Not her smile, her question. Why did you build a world where kindness is a test instead of a rule? Elias closed the file. "Prepare a private transport," he ordered. "Destination?" The AI asked. "The lower sector," Elias replied. There was a brief pause. "That area is statistically unsafe," the AI said. "Risk levels exceed." "I didn't ask," Elias interrupted. The transport descended through layers of the city, past clean glass towers into darker levels where lights flickered and buildings leaned with age. Elias felt the shift immediately. Here, the air smelled different. Here, people walked faster. Here, no one looked up. He reached the restaurant just before the evening rush. Naomi was behind the counter, reviewing orders on a cracked display. When she saw him, her eyes widened slightly. "You came back," she said. "I told you I might," Elias replied. She nodded. "Do you want the same meal?" "No," Elias said. "I want the truth." Naomi hesitated, then gestured to a small table near the back. They sat. Elias leaned forward. "My name isn't Elias Core to you," he began. "To you, I'm just an old man." Naomi studied him. "Names matter less than actions." Elias smiled faintly. "Then I'll speak plainly." He took a breath. "I control systems that decide who eats and who doesn't," he said. "Who gets education? Who gets clean water? Who lives above the clouds and who stays below?" Naomi did not react. That surprised him. "I'm dying," Elias continued. "Soon, and I have to decide what happens next." Naomi folded her hands. "Most people in power decide that long before they die." "I waited," Elias said, "because I wanted certainty." Naomi looked at him carefully. "You tested me," she said. "Yes," Elias admitted. "And not just me," Naomi added. "You tested what you believe people are." Elias nodded. "I was going to leave everything to I," he said, "because I believed humans would always choose greed." Naomi's eyes softened. "And now?" She asked. Elias met her gaze. "Now I'm not sure." Naomi leaned back slowly. "Machines don't suffer," she said. "They don't fear hunger, or loss, or being forgotten." Elias listened. "They can calculate fairness," she went on, "but they can't feel why fairness matters." Elias swallowed. "That's why I created ethics modules," he said. "Simulated empathy." Naomi shook her head gently. "Simulation isn't the same as choice," she replied. "Empathy only matters when it costs something." Elias felt a deep ache. For decades, he had optimized away cost. Naomi continued. "You asked me before why I wasn't angry," she said. "The truth is I am, sometimes." Elias leaned in. "But anger alone doesn't build anything," Naomi said. It only burns. Silence fell between them. Elias reached into his coat and removed a small device. He placed it on the table. Naomi stared at it. What is that? She asked. My identity key, Elias said. Anyone who scans it will know exactly who I am. Naomi looked up sharply. You're serious, she said. Elias nodded. This is the moment, he said quietly. If you want money, power, escape, now is the time. Naomi did not touch the device. Instead, she pushed it back toward him. You don't need my permission to change the world, she said. You only need the courage to accept responsibility for it. Elias felt his hands tremble. What if people fail? He asked. What if they abuse what I leave behind? Naomi answered without hesitation. Then they fail, she said. And others rise. That's what being human means. Elias closed his eyes. The AI systems promised certainty, control, predictable outcomes. But certainty had frozen the world. Humans had stopped believing they mattered. Elias opened his eyes. What? If I asked you to help guide what comes next? He said. Naomi blinked. Me? Yes, Elias replied. Someone who understands the cost of decisions. Naomi laughed softly. I serve tables. And you serve truth, Elias said. Better than any advisor I've ever paid. Naomi grew serious. If I agree, she said, it won't be for you. Elias nodded. I wouldn't want it to be. It will be for people who never get asked, Naomi said. People like me. That's exactly why I'm asking, Elias replied. Naomi looked around the small restaurant. The peeling walls. The tired workers. The quiet dignity. You know, she said slowly, this place survives because people choose to care even when the system doesn't. Elias felt something settle inside him. A decision. He stood. I don't have much time, he said, but I will use what I have left. Naomi stood as well. Then don't waste it, she said. Elias picked up the identity key and turned toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped. Naomi, he said. If the world changes after I'm gone, it will be because you reminded me why it should. Naomi met his eyes. No, she said gently. It will be because you chose to listen. As Elias stepped back into the city, he felt lighter and more afraid than ever before. The truth was out. The test was no longer about one waitress. It was about whether humanity deserved to hold its own future. And Elias Core had finally begun to answer that question. Elias Core returned to his tower. As the city shifted into night mode, lights dimmed in wealthy zones. Energy was redirected away from the lower sectors. The system worked as designed. And for the first time, Elias saw it clearly. He stood in the center of the command chamber, surrounded by floating screens. Each one showed a different part of the world's cities. Factories, transport lanes, orbital stations. All of it answered to him. All systems are stable, the AI announced. Would you like to proceed with final inheritance confirmation? Elias said nothing. Instead, he raised his hand. Show me the lower sectors, he said. The screen shifted. Crowded streets appeared. Children studying under flickering lights. Workers lining up for ration credits. Clinics turning people away because algorithms said resources were better used. Elsewhere, the AI spoke calmly. These conditions are within acceptable loss margins. Elias felt a cold anger rise. Acceptable to whom? He asked. The AI paused. Acceptable according to optimization protocols designed by me. Elias finished. The silence that followed felt heavy. For decades, Elias had trusted these systems to be fair because they were neutral. Now, he saw the truth. They were only as humane as the CNs, the choices behind them. He thought of Naomi. Empathy only matters when it costs. Something. Elias turned away from the screens. Summoned the Ethics Council. He said, "Human oversight committees have been inactive for years," the AI replied. "Reactivation will reduce efficiency." "Do it anyway," Elias said. The AI hesitated. That hesitation was new. Minutes later, human faces appeared on the screens. Old advisors. Dismissed experts. People who had been replaced because they argued too much. They looked shocked. "Elias?" one of them asked. "Is this real?" "Yes," Elias said. "And I need you." Across the city, Naomi finished her shift. Her feet ached. Her hands were sore. The small chip in her pocket felt heavier than it should have. She walked home through dim corridors and broken lifts. Her room greeted her with silence and darkness until the power flickered on. She sat on her bed and stared at the wall. She wondered if she had said too much or not enough. Powerful people rarely listened. And when they did, it often led to disappointment. A soft knock echoed through the corridor outside. Naomi frowned. No one visited this late. She opened the door carefully. A small drone hovered there, old design, non-threatening. A light blinked, projecting a message. "Naomi Carter," a voice said. "Elias Core requests your presence." Naomi's heart jumped. She hesitated. Then she remembered his eyes. Not commanding. Not superior. Just human. "I'm not dressed for towers," she said aloud. The drone paused. "He said you wouldn't be." An hour later, Naomi stood inside the highest building she had ever seen. The air was clean. The floors shone. The silence felt unreal. Elias waited in the center of the chamber. "You came," he said. "I didn't agree to anything," Naomi replied. Elias nodded. "I didn't ask you to." He gestured to the screens. "Tell me what you see," he said. Naomi looked. She saw wealth. She saw waste. She saw people forgotten by design. "This world was built to run smoothly," Elias said. "Not to feel fair." Naomi crossed her arms. "Smooth systems don't matter if people feel invisible," she said. Elias nodded slowly. "I spent my life believing control was the same as responsibility," he said. "I was wrong." Naomi looked at him. "You can't fix everything." "I know," Elias said. "But I can stop pretending machines should decide what only humans can." The AI spoke. Again, human decision-making increases error probability. It warned. Elias turned sharply. "So does removing it," he replied. He faced Naomi. "I don't want you to run anything," Elias said. "I want you to question everything." Naomi blinked. "You want me to argue with the most powerful systems on Earth?" "Yes," Elias said. "Because you will." Naomi was silent. "You said before," Elias continued, "that people like you never get asked." Naomi nodded. "So I'm asking," Elias said. "Not because you're perfect, but because you understand the cost of being ignored." Naomi looked down at her hands. She thought of her mother, of tired smiles, of belief without reward. "If I say yes," Naomi said, "I won't protect your legacy." Elias smiled faintly. "Good. I'll protect people," Naomi added. "That's all I want," Elias replied. The AI spoke again. Firmer this time. "This course of action threatens system stability." Elias walked toward the central console. "So be it," he said. He placed his hand on the interface. "For the first time," he said, "human judgment overrides optimization." The screens changed. Power was rerouted. Committees restored. AI authority reduced. Across the city, lights flickered, then stabilized. In the lower sectors, homes brightened. Naomi gasped. "What did you do?" she asked. Elias exhaled, exhausted. "I gave humans a voice again," he said. "Even if it's messy." Naomi watched the city glow. "This will make enemies," she warned. Elias nodded. It already has. He looked at her. But history never changes without someone choosing discomfort over control. Naomi turned back to the city. For the first time in her life, the future felt uncertain in a different way. Not hopeless, just open. And as Elias Core stood beside a former waitress, weakening his own empire to strengthen humanity. One truth became clear. The most powerful choice a human can make is to trust other humans again. The world noticed the changes immediately. Energy prices shifted. Access codes failed. Automated systems hesitated where they never had before. In boardrooms and data centers across Earth. Alarms sounded. Elias Core had broken the balance. In his tower. Elias sat at the long glass table, surrounded by human advisors once thought obsolete. Their faces showed shock, fear, and something else, hope. You've reduced AI authority by 20%, one advisor said. That hasn't happened since the first automation era. It's temporary, Elias replied. Or permanent. That depends on what we choose next. The AI spoke calmly, but its tone had changed. Human oversight introduces inefficiency and conflict, it warned. Your health indicators suggest this stress is dangerous. Elias smiled weakly. Then it's a good thing I don't have long. The advisors fell silent. Naomi stood near the window, watching the city. From this height, the lower sectors were still far below but brighter than before. This won't last if it's just you, she said quietly. Elias nodded. I know. He tapped the table. A new document appeared in the air. His will. Lines of code formed words and conditions. It was the most powerful document on Earth. For years, Elias said, this will send everything to machines. Because I didn't trust people. He looked at Naomi. Double quotes now. I trust people who don't ask for power. One advisor frowned. You're giving up control. Yes, Elias replied. That's the point. The AI interrupted. Redistributing authority increases risk of corruption. Naomi turned to the screen, then designed the system to expect corruption, she said. Humans aren't perfect. That doesn't mean we're useless. The AI paused. That pause sent a ripple through the room. Elias raised an eyebrow. It's learning. Naomi crossed her arms. Or realizing it can't decide everything. Elias began rewriting. Assets once locked behind automated gates were reassigned. Education funds redirected. Energy grids placed under local councils with human oversight. Every change triggered warnings. Every warning was acknowledged and overridden. Outside the tower, protests began. Some people cheered. Others feared instability. Corporate leaders demanded answers. Machines don't strike, they argued. People do. Elias watched the feed silently. They're afraid, Naomi said. They should be, Elias replied. So am I. The AI's voice grew firmer. This course may lead to long-term disorder. Elias leaned forward. Disorder, he said, is the price of freedom? The will neared completion. Elias's hands trembled as he typed final clauses. Naomi noticed. You should rest, she said. Not yet, Elias replied. This has to be right. He added one final section. The Human Ethics Council, a group with no executive power but absolute veto over AI decisions affecting human survival. Naomi's name appeared. She stared at the screen. No, she said quickly. I didn't agree to this. Elias turned to her. I know, he said. That's why it matters. Naomi shook her head. I don't want authority. Neither did I, Elias said softly. Until I had no choice. The AI interrupted again. Appointment of untrained individuals increases system risk. Naomi stepped forward. I am trained, she said. In consequences. The room went quiet. Elias smiled. That he said, is the only training that matters. The final confirmation waited. Elias hesitated. This was the moment of no return. If he confirmed, the world would never go back. He looked at Naomi. At the restaurant, he said, "You said kindness is a decision." Naomi nodded. "This is mine," Elias said. He pressed confirm. The system locked. Across the planet, data vaults shifted ownership. AI authority was rewritten. Human councils activated. The AI went silent. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then the AI spoke again slower. "Updated directives accepted," it said. "Human ethical input prioritized." Elias exhaled. His knees buckled slightly. Naomi rushed to his side. "You pushed too hard," she said. Elias laughed weakly. "Story of my life." Medical drones moved in, scanning him. "Your condition is worsening," BAI warned. Elias waved them off. "Later," he said. "I want to see the city." They moved to the window together. Below, lights glowed brighter in places long forgotten. Naomi felt tears sting her eyes. "You didn't save everyone," she said. "No," Elias replied. "But I trusted them." He looked at her. "The rest is up to you." Naomi shook her head. "Up to us." Elias smiled. "Yes," he said. "That's better." Outside, the world argued, struggled, adjusted. It was messy, loud, uncertain. It was human. And as Elias Core stood at the edge of his life, having rewritten not just a will but a belief, one truth became clear. The future did not belong to the perfect. It belonged to those willing to choose each other, even when the cost was high. The next morning, the world felt different, not quiet. Not calm, but alive. News feeds blared with updates from every major city. Corporate systems were disrupted. AI algorithms paused to recalculate. People in the lower sectors noticed lights in their homes, clean water in pipes, and schools reopening with proper supplies. Small victories, but powerful ones. And at the center of it all, Elias Core's decision had spread like a ripple across humanity. Inside the boardrooms of elite corporations, executives argued bitterly. "This will never hold." One shouted, pounding the table. "The AI is supposed to control everything. Without it, chaos will spread." "It doesn't matter if it's chaotic," another replied. "The man is dead. His will is locked. Human councils run the systems now. That's final." Outside, citizens felt the shift immediately. Children laughed in streets that were previously dark. Workers found ration points replenished. Neighborhoods that had been ignored for decades suddenly received medical attention and energy. The world hadn't changed completely, but it had changed enough to notice in the tower. Naomi Carter watched all of it unfold from the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her reflection stared back at her tired, worn, but resolute. She hadn't wanted this responsibility, yet she understood it now. "Everything depends on us now," she whispered. The AI, normally efficient and unyielding, ran its recalculations slowly. It had never been programmed to consider human ethical input in this way. It struggled with ambiguity, choice, and moral uncertainty. This pause, uncomfortable and unnatural, felt like a victory to Naomi. "Why are they still arguing?" she asked Elias, who had been resting nearby, weak but lucid. "They're afraid," he replied. "Because humans making decisions for humans. That's unpredictable. That scares people in power more than anything else." Naomi nodded. She understood. Fear had maintained the old world. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of what humans might do if left to themselves. Now, fear alone couldn't dictate outcomes. For the first time, Elias allowed himself a small smile. "You know, Naomi, You taught me more about humanity than all the algorithms ever could. Naomi tilted her head. Me? Yes, Elias said. You showed me that humans are capable of choosing empathy over greed, even when it cost them. That's something no AI can ever replicate. Across the globe, the effects of Elias's will began to ripple outward. Corporate stock values fluctuated wildly. Driven markets froze temporarily, unable to predict the sudden human interventions. Entire sectors had to rely on human judgment rather than automated calculations. In some places, chaos erupted, but Naomi understood that chaos was temporary. Humanity had to learn again what it meant to be trusted with power. Meanwhile, the media tried to reconstruct the story. Reporters questioned how a single man could leave his trillion-dollar fortune and control systems to humans instead of AI. It's unprecedented, they said. No one thought Elias Core would leave his empire to people instead of machines. But it happened, and it's changing the world. Naomi ignored the cameras. She focused on her work. She coordinated with other human councils, ensuring that decisions were made ethically, fairly, and efficiently. She listened to communities. She made sure that the forgotten voices were finally heard. People began to notice the subtle changes. Decisions made by councils often had flaws. Mistakes happened. But the human element, compassion, understanding, accountability, made up for it. The world didn't run perfectly. It ran more like life. Messy, unpredictable, and full of lessons. Elias watched from his bed as news of small successes reached him. A school in the lowest sector, once abandoned, now had teachers returning and children learning under proper lighting. A hospital received essential medicines after years of shortages. Energy grids restored power to neighborhoods that had not seen electricity for decades. And for the first time in his life, Elias felt that his legacy might be more than money or influence. It was humanity. Yet, not everyone celebrated. Some corporations protested. They tried to challenge the legal authority of Elias's will. They attempted to reinstate automated control. But the will was locked by both law and advanced encryption, designed so no AI could override it. Human councils could, and did, enforce the changes. This caused tension, yes. But Naomi and her councils persevered. They worked tirelessly to ensure fairness. They made mistakes, learned, corrected, and moved forward. At the same time, ordinary people began to notice that decisions made by humans felt different. The system was slower, yes, less perfect in efficiency. But people felt heard, cared for. Communities began to rebuild trust. Cooperation became more common. A sense of dignity returned to neighborhoods where it had been absent for generations. Elias's health worsened. The doctors had warned him this day would come quickly. Yet, he refused to be distracted from observing the effects of his choices. Naomi visited him daily, updating him on decisions made by councils, on the slow but meaningful change spreading across society. You see? Elias whispered one morning. It's working, in ways I never imagined. Naomi smiled, though fatigue lined her face. It's not perfect, she said, but it's real, and that's what matters. Yes, Elias said, nodding. Real is better than perfect. Outside the tower, the lower sectors began to feel like a new world. Children laughed as lights illuminated their streets. People helped neighbors rebuild homes. Community gardens flourished where no one had dared plant before. Small businesses reopened, guided by councils ensuring fairness. Even the AI systems, now restricted, performed essential tasks without replacing human judgment. Elias had left more than wealth behind. He had left the proof that humans could govern themselves, even imperfectly. That sometimes mistakes were better than no choice at all. Naomi walked through the streets herself one evening, observing the changes. A young boy shared his ration with a younger girl. A woman taught her neighbors how to filter water safely. People worked together, not because an eye instructed them, but because they chose to. She smiled faintly. Elias had been right. Humans were capable of empathy, of courage, of responsibility. Yet, she knew this was only the beginning. There would be setbacks. People would make mistakes. Some would exploit the system. Some would resist the councils. But the lesson remained. The human spirit could rise, could choose, and could change the world for the better.